This is a steal for the Pittsburgh Penguins as a new report has revealed a new Penguins trade target, and he is an elite player in this league. We're going to break down who he is and why this will be absolutely game-changing for this Pittsburgh Penguins team heading into next season. We're going to break it all down in this episode of Penguins Digest. But before we do that, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. About 68% of you who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you want to stay up to date with everything that's happening with your Pittsburgh Penguins, because it's going to be a very busy offseason with trade rumors, actual trades and roster moves, and of course, they're still looking for their new head coach. Go down below, hit that subscribe button. It is free. And again, you get to stay up to date with everything that's happening with the Pittsburgh Penguins. But who is this player that I am alluding to? He would be a game changer for this Pittsburgh Penguins team, and exactly why in a couple videos ago I did say the Penguins should not draft a center, because you can find one on the trade market that will make an impact immediately. This player that I am talking about is Marco Rossi from the Minnesota Wild. This guy would absolutely change the whole entire complexion of this Penguins team, and I'll explain why in this video. But by all accounts, all rumors, he won't be a Minnesota Wild next season. He does need a contract. He is an RFA. We'll get into some projections and what he could make, but I do think he will be traded. And it's reported that the Minnesota Wild don't seem too enamored with Marco Rossi, and he could be on his way out of Minnesota via trade. And if you're letting go of Marco Rossi, you better get a hell of a deal and a hell of a player back. So it's not going to be easy to get Marco Rossi, but should they get Marco Rossi? I mean, the Penguins should be at the top of the list to talk about Marco Rossi and where he could potentially go. The Pittsburgh Penguins need a second line center. And you might be thinking, second line center, we have Evgeni Malkin. No. It is time to retool this team on the fly, like Kyle Dubas is saying. And again, this is from the Bar Down Beauties podcast, and a lot of them had some thoughts on Marco Rossi and what's happening with that entire situation. But, you know, through this entire season and through the playoffs, this Wild team is not playing this guy where he should be playing. They are ruining not only his development at this point. I don't know what it is, what they don't like about him, but this is a very skilled player. He's not even a top six guy. This guy can be a top line forward on many teams in this league. And Marco Rossi says he met with John Hines about his fourth line role in the playoffs and says he was disappointed but respects the decision. He's an RFA this summer. He was very disappointed in that happening with the Minnesota Wild because he was, put on their fourth line in the playoffs. They ended up losing to the Vegas Golden Knights, and he is definitely a top six guy. And the reason I say that, if we take a look at his stats now, and we'll get into this quote in just a second, but if you take a look at his stats, in 82 games, which he played all 82 games this season, he had 24 goals and 60 points. I mean, this is a guy, if he's playing maybe not top line minutes, because of course you'd want him playing center, but if you put him with Rickard Rakell, who we'll also get to later in the video, but maybe some, responsible wingers and a new role, a fresh mindset coming to a new city and a team that will play him in the top six, I feel like this guy could be at least a point a game player in this league, if not more. This is a very, very skilled player that plays, upwards of 18 minutes a night, and he can put up points. He's not the biggest player, right? We have to keep that in mind, but again, a very good hockey player and young. He's only going to be 24, and he's only going to get better, but he's only going to get better if he's actually playing, and he's not getting that opportunity in Minnesota. And he went on to say that I showed all year how good I am, and I went last year from 40 points to 60 points this year. Anyone who knows me, it's always going up, and I always improve, especially with my work ethic. So I have no doubt I'm for sure a top six guy, and I have to agree. I think this is a top six player, and he should be on, first of all, the Minnesota Wild, and second of all, on literally any other team he would go to, unless they're, a contender. But if you threw him on the Pittsburgh Penguins, this is your second line center. So I think this is a really good move. Now, what's it going to cost to get a guy like Marco Rossi? It's going to cost probably quite a bit. And there's a lot of RFAs this year, and a lot of really good RFAs. Two great names like our Marco Rossi and Gabe Vilardi, young established centers that would make an instant impact. Vilardi is playing the wing for the Winnipeg Jets, but can play center. Main problem is $5 to $8 million. and obviously a 26 first round pick in terms of an offer sheet from the Minnesota Wild. But I would imagine that it is going to be a trade. But we can look at some projections as well, and this is from Scotia Projections, and they do some fantastic work. Go check them out on X. They have all player cards for every single player and what they could project to make next season. But again, 60 points in 82 games. He has them projected, or they have them projected at 44% probability of making $6.7 million. So it's going to be between $6.5 and $7 million. The Pittsburgh Penguins can A, afford that, and B, going long term, even if you sign him to $8 million, it's going to age beautifully because he's only going to get better and take on a better role. Some of his comparables, a guy like Quinton Byfield, who's fantastic, Trevor Zegras, Owen Tippett. Owen Tippett is a great goal scorer in this league. And he's just hiding away on the Philadelphia Flyers, unfortunately. But Adrian Kempe, one of the most underrated players in the league, and Brandon Hagel. Those are some comparables in terms of play and obviously what they might be making in terms of cap hits. So I think that would be a great deal in terms of, what to sign him to. But what would come back the other way for the Pittsburgh Penguins? A lot of people, obviously the cap works. You can make it work. You have a projected cap of a lot heading into next season. All of that would absolutely work. But what would you give up if you're the Pittsburgh Penguins? Now, this is an article from Kelsey. And thank you to Kelsey again, because we use her work all the time on the channel. And great reporter there for the Pittsburgh Penguins. But obviously they have the 11th overall pick. Would you be okay trading the 11th overall pick for a bona fide second line center? I say bona fide, but I think that he can grow into that. Would you be okay with that? I don't know, right? I don't know. But what do you look at other than that? I mean, this is a guy who scored 24 goals. He had 60 points this season. Yes, he's a little bit smaller, but he's a great skilled player that you should look to acquire. Minnesota Wild don't look like they want him. So do the Pittsburgh Penguins have the assets available? And I've heard this thrown around not only in this article from Kelsey, but out there on the comment section of Minnesota Wild Digest as well, another channel, and obviously out there on X, Evgeni Malkin, again, you would have to figure out the no movement clause. Maybe Malkin wants to go try and win a Stanley Cup with the Wild next year. They still have a pretty good team built out there, so maybe that's something you can convince him of. But he's the current second line center for this team. Obviously, he's regressed a lot. We all know that. He's 38 at this point and, not getting much younger. We know that he has regressed at this point. He had just 16 goals and 50 points last year. So getting the 60-point version of Rossi is already better than what Malkin's giving you right now. And I think Rossi's ceiling is much higher than what we've seen. So even if Sidney Crosby is still absolutely amazing and brilliant at age 37, there's no denying that the Penguins need to get ahead of adding talent at the position as soon as they possibly can. So I don't know what the return would be for Marco Rossi at this point. Maybe it's Evgeni Malkin if you can get that to work. But what I do know is you should look to acquire this player this offseason. And that's kind of why I was saying, don't go out and draft a center. Go draft a need and a guy that you can develop out there on the back end in terms of defenseman and Smith or somebody, whoever's available at 11. Or maybe you even trade that draft pick for Marco Rossi. There's a lot up in the air, but I think Rossi really helps speed up that process of trying to find a second line center because Crosby's going to be that guy. He's still playing at a high level. Malkin has regressed sizably, considerably. So you have to figure that out sooner rather than later. But let me know in the comments what you think about Marco Rossi potentially becoming a Pittsburgh Penguin. I think it's a no-brainer move, and the Penguins should be at the top of the list in terms of teams interested in Marco Rossi. Let me know what you think, and if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you can stay up to date with everything Pittsburgh Penguins.